Car Doctor of Washington, Iowa. No matter who Frankensteined it, they can fix and clean and customize it. Griner Auto Body of Washington, Iowa, using state-of-the-art techniques and decades of experience to get your car back on the road after an accident. McDonald Boneyard of Keota for all of your farm machinery and auto recycling needs. Hinshaw Trailer Sales in Richland, Iowa. They fix what they sell and don't in their full-time repair shop. Girling Repair of Winfield, Iowa. If your mower is dead, call Fred, your Husqvarna and Aaron's dealer. B&B Propane and the family of jet stops in Burlington, Salem Stub, New London, West Point, Denmark, Houghton, Bonaparte, Milton, Fairfield, and Birmingham present Southeast Iowa today. I'm John Bain, author of Christie's Journey, The Beat Goes On, and your host. On today's episode, I take you to Coralville, Iowa, and Governor Ron DeSantis, Governor of Florida Ron DeSantis, and Republican primary presidential candidate Ron DeSantis speaks to the folks in Coralville, Iowa. You're going to get the whole thing unedited, including the press conference afterwards.
Is an amazing woman. She's a devoted wife and mother. She's a cancer survivor. She's a former television host and an Emmy award-winning journalist. So excited to have her join us today. And we're featuring Governor DeSantis. He comes from humble beginnings. His grandfather worked in the steel mills of Pennsylvania and Ohio. His mother was a nurse, and his father installed Nielsen rating boxes. And I don't know if you folks remember those, but that was a little while ago. He, during his childhood, he developed a passion for baseball, which he developed through Yale, and he became a legend at Yale playing baseball. And when he graduated from Yale, he worked himself through Yale, through Harvard Law School. He then courageously volunteered in the service, in the Navy. He then was deployed to Iraq, where he is a Bronze Star Medal recipient. He's the only veteran in the race right now. Upon completion of his military service, he went on to continue to serve. He did not stop, and he was a federal prosecutor where he targeted and convicted child predators. That's a huge deal. In 2012, he was elected to Congress, where he was a champion for American veterans. He also established the House Freedom Caucus, which was established to fight, as I'm reading this, the deep state. So awesome on that. He was elected governor of Florida in 2018 by a razor-thin margin. However, he proved his worth, and in the last election, he won by a landslide by the widest margin in this generation. Ron DeSantis has never lost an election and is the Republican Party's best chance to beat Joe Biden in the radical Democrats in the 2024 presidential election. Without further ado, I introduce you, Governor Ron DeSantis!
So we've been doing a bus tour through Iowa the last few weeks. All the kids have been there. They've seen, before we started, we did the movie Field of Dreams, so they got to learn about that. We were at the Clayton County Fair last week, and we had time for my son and I to play catch by the cornfield. And he asked me, "Daddy, is this heaven?" I said, "No, son, it's Iowa." Thank you all. Good to be here. We are going to send Joe Biden back to his basement in Delaware where he belongs. My kids aren't going to be bringing cocaine into the White House, I can tell you that. Maybe some finger painting and some other stuff, but we can deal with that. That's not going to be much of a problem. We are in a situation, though, where our country is in decline. Economic decline, military decline, cultural decline. It is not going to be enough for Republicans to just manage this decline a little bit better than the Democrats. And I'm running for president because we have no other choice. We must reverse the decline of this country. We must restore America to its greatness. And I'm somebody that, if they mention in the bio or in the introduction, I'm a blue-collar kid. I worked minimum wage jobs to be able to get through school. But I did that and worked hard because I always thought in America, if you work hard and get the most out of your God-given ability, you can succeed in this country. And yet we see now the American dream is slipping away from millions and millions of Americans, and we have an obligation to restore it. I'm somebody that volunteered, even though I put myself in a position to make more money. After 9/11, I volunteered to serve our country in uniform, volunteered to deploy to Iraq. We were in places like Fallujah and Ramadi. I was attached to U.S. Navy SEALs during a tough time over there. But I did that because, I've always believed in service over self. And the ability to serve and wear the uniform of the greatest country in the world was something that I felt not only I had an obligation to do, but it was something that gave me a great deal of satisfaction because I appreciate what this country means. And yet if you look now, our country is not strong like it used to. Our country is not successful like it's used to. And we need to revive American strength, and we need to revive the spirit of the United States of America. You also saw our kids, my wife and I, I'm a dad of a 6, 5, and 3-year-old. We look at what's going on in our society and the targeting of children, and we are able to say that is wrong. We cannot have a society that doesn't want national children. And you need to be able to have leadership, you got to have vision, and you got to have the courage to be able to get all this stuff done. And we've demonstrated that with what we've been able to accomplish in Florida, and we will deliver as your president. We will reverse Bidenomics as soon as we get into the White House. If you look at what's going on with the whole inflation came in today, it was actually more than they thought. The media is trying to say, oh, it's cooling. Let me tell you this. The prices are not going down, okay? They may be going up a little less rapidly than a year ago, but they are not going down. And you're not going to get the pre-COVID prices back, on this current trajectory. And we're in this mess for a simple reason. The federal government, Congress, the Federal Reserve, they borrowed and printed and spent trillions and trillions of dollars starting in March of 2020. You can't do that and not expect the bill to come due. Wouldn't it be great if all we had to do as Americans is print trillions of dollars and we could print our way to prosperity? We know that's not how it works. And so when you do those types of policies that they have done, that actually benefits the elites in Washington. Right now, 5 of the 8 wealthiest counties in this country are suburbs of Washington, D.C. It isn't because they're producing very much of anything useful. It is because government is acting in a way that benefits them, and causes the rest of Americans to pay the bill. And you're paying the bill in form of this higher prices and the inflation, which is effectively an invisible tax. And it's a tax that hurts poor people, working class people, middle class people. Wealthy people end up doing okay with it. We are going to, on day one, take all the Biden regulations and executive orders orders, and we are going to throw them in the trash can on January 20th, 2025. Because ultimately, what Bidenomics is about it's about your standard of living going down so he and his cronies can pursue their own agenda. And that doesn't work for the average American. Look, if you're in a situation for our country, you have got to have it so that people who work hard, play by the rules, get the most out of their God-given talent, are able to raise a family, buy a home, buy a car, and do all those things. And if they can't do that, then this country isn't working. And it's not working right now, and we're going to change that. Part of what we're going to have to do is, I as president, I'm not going to permit Congress to spend this country into oblivion any longer. We are going to fight back against the big spenders. We're going to hold them accountable. You know, in Florida, we run budget surpluses every year, massive surpluses. We vetoed billions of dollars in wasteful spending, and since I've been governor, we've actually paid down almost 25% of the state's total debt that had accumulated throughout the entire history of the state of Florida. So don't tell me it can't be done. It can be done. Another way to help the average American is to open up our energy production and become energy independent again. It's good for consumers who pay less for energy. It's good for businesses because that influences everything that goes into business, the cost of energy. It's good for our industrial base. We need to be permitting more pipelines, and we need to be doing more of that. But it's also good for our national security. Why would we want to empower Venezuela and Iran and Russia and China? We have a huge opportunity to utilize this great advantage we have with our domestic resources. Biden puts his ideological agenda over the well-being of the country. That will end on January 2025, and we're going to get America working again with energy, and you're going to see countries like Russia and China and Iran. American energy independence is not going to be good for them, and that means it's going to be good for the people of this country. There we go. You know, I don't really need this because I got a loud voice, but I think we need to get it for the media to catch up with it. So the other thing we're going to do to help the economy, we've got to change the way we're doing education in this country. First of all, the purpose of schools or universities should be to educate kids, not to indoctrinate kids. And we've got to get right with our universities, our K-12. We've done that in Florida. But we also have to just be honest. It's because, you know, when I was growing up, I said, you know, unless you get a college degree, you can't be successful. And, you know, college is a good thing to aspire to. There's a lot of great degrees out there. Don't get me wrong. But the idea that the only way you can be successful is to get a degree from a 4-year Brick and Ivy university, that is false. It is not the only way you can be successful, and for many people, it's not the best way you can be successful. So we are going to embrace workforce education, vocational skills, technical education, because this is a great opportunity for a lot of young people to do very, very well. And here's the thing, it's like you can make these choices, but when kids are told you've got to get this degree, what's happened? We have a generation of students that went deep into debt, and they end up with a degree in something like zombie studies. That is not cutting it in terms of their career prospects. Meanwhile, people that are going for welding or going for aviation mechanic, we're doing this in Florida in middle school now, and then the high school kids can get credentialed. They're making 80 grand right out of high school. The truck drivers we were doing 600 truck drivers a year in Florida before I became governor. Now we're producing 3,500. They're making $110,000, you know, starting at like Walmart or something like that. So there's great opportunities, no debt or very minimal debt and opportunities, but it's good for our economy because if we want to make things here again, we cannot subcontract out our economy to the Chinese Communist Party any longer. We need to do this here. And we've over 2-3 decades, the elites in this country said, you know, when they did all this stuff with China, they claimed that China wouldn't manipulate their currency. They claimed China wouldn't steal our technology. They claimed our manufacturing wouldn't move to China. They claimed it would make China more peaceful and more democratic. None of that has come to pass. Basically, the elites in our country have empowered our top adversary in the world, and they're now the second strongest economy in the world, and they have the second strongest military in the world. And on this trajectory, they are going to pass our country by within the next 10 years. And let me tell you, we need to be number one because that's the way we are as Americans, and we've got that attitude and moxie. But if China surpasses us, that will not just be something that they put on a bulletin board. That will affect the lives of every single American household, because they will use their economic and cultural and political power to reduce our freedom. So we cannot continue to empower China. We need to do more critical things here in this country, and having these workforce with the good skills, that's going to make all the difference in the world. So we are going to do that, and it's going to be good. We're also, look, as president, one thing about me, like will not tell you I'm going to do something if I don't intend to do it. I don't believe in because there's a lot of people that'll say things and tell you what you want to hear, and then they get into office and they don't do it. Well, that's not how I roll. So we are going to finally bring the issue of the southern border to an end when I become president. That will end with me. We're going to declare it a national emergency. We're going to have military at the border. We're going to shut the invasion down. If someone comes illegally, they're going to get sent back to their home country. Yes, we will actually build a border wall. We will get that done. It's important. We'll do it. Probably the most important, I'll be the first president who's been willing to lean in against the Mexican drug cartels that are poisoning this country, that are trafficking humans into this country, and that are causing a lot of death and destruction. When they come to the border and they try to break into our country, we're authorizing deadly force. They try to break into our country, they will end up stone cold dead. They're not killing any more Americans. We're also going to bring a reckoning to the government for its COVID-19 lockdown policies. Because you had CDC, NIH, Fauci, all these people, they were wrong, they lied to the public, and they destroyed the lives of millions and millions of people. And in Iowa and Florida, you may not have felt it as much because you have a great governor here who stood in the way, and I fought Fauci in Florida to keep our state free and open. But there are other parts of this country that weren't so fortunate. Kids were locked out of school for over a year. That's going to have a generational impact in terms of learning loss. Individual rights were violated. People were forced to take a COVID vaccine at the cost of losing their job. And we blocked that in Florida, but that happened in other parts of this country. And nobody's been held accountable for any of this. In fact, a lot of these people claim that they did a good job with all of this. They weren't even honest about the virus coming from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. They tried to cover that up as well because they funded the gain-of-function research. So this is a massive, disgusting medical swamp in Washington, D.C. We are going to bring a reckoning to it because we can never let this happen in our country ever again. We're also going to understand as president that we are in a philosophical battle with the ideological left in this country. Leftism is taking over a lot of institutions in American life right now. It used to be they kind of had their little place in like Berkeley or these other universities. Now they're taking over corporations, the bureaucracy, all these other things. And what's really come up is this idea of woke ideology. And that's really driving them to do it. Some people say, don't worry about woke, that it's not necessarily a big deal. Well, first of all, it's important that our policies and our society is rooted in the truth. And woke really represents a rejection of truth itself. Do not tell me that a man can get pregnant and expect me to accept that. Because I will not. And I will not have a society that accepts that. There's value in being rooted in the truth. free. But it's also the case when you look when this ideology overtakes institutions, it causes major damage. When things like ESG overtake parts of the economy, the average person will end up poorer as a result of that. When it overtakes education, you get indoctrination of students. The average student ends up dumber as a result of that. When it overtakes criminal justice, you see these prosecutors who say they're not going to prosecute people, they're not going to hold them accountable in places like Los Angeles and Chicago, and communities end up less safe as a result of that. You know, in Florida, we just acted. We had a prosecutor in Orlando. She wouldn't prosecute cases. She's putting people out back on the street, and this one guy shot 2 police officers because he should have been in jail, and he's out there. So I removed her from her post. I'm not going to just sit there and take that. But if our country gets overtaken by a woke agenda, it will destroy this country. Every place this has been tried, whether it is San Francisco or Chicago or Illinois or all these places, it's destroyed those communities. You know how I know? Because the people that flee from there usually come to my state, and they tell me about it. And they tell me how bad it was, and they tell me how happy they are to live in the free state of Florida. And they come to Florida in part because we've made Florida the state where woke goes to die. They don't have to worry about it when they're in Florida. We need to make, as president, we need to make sure that this woke agenda ends up in the dustbin of history where it belongs. We also see some of this with what's happening in our military. And as a veteran, I have veterans now coming up to me saying they're not sure they would advise their kids or grandkids to join the military. Why? Because you see social experimentation going on. You see political agenda, woke ideology getting into the military. People go to do training and they're being taught to do all these pronouns. Navy has a drag queen to recruit. You're just like, what is going on here? But there's a reason why recruiting is at a generational low. People want to join an institution where everyone's banding together to serve a common purpose. They don't want to be a cog in the wheel of somebody's social agenda. So as Commander-in-Chief on day 1, we are going to rip all the political agenda, the woke, the social stuff out of the military. Mission first. We are going to restore mission first. And you're going to see recruiting increase as a result of that. We're also going to restore integrity to our constitutional system. Our founding fathers designed a constitution with 3 branches of government. They did not create a 4th branch of government, an administrative state, a bureaucracy that looms over us, imposes its will on us without our consent and without accountability. A lot of the most important things in our society now, what kind of energy you can use, what kind of cars you can buy, even things like gas stoves. Although in Florida, when New York was trying to ban it, we made gas stoves tax-free in Florida, so we're doing it differently. But all those things are being imposed not by votes from your elected representatives in Congress, they're being imposed by nameless and faceless bureaucrats who you don't have the authority to vote out of office. So we need to return this government to its rightful owners, which is we, the American people. And the reason why you have things like weaponization of government, weaponization of IRS, Department of Justice, weaponization of the FBI, the founders would have predicted this. When you don't hold power constitutionally accountable, human nature being what it is, they are going to abuse their power. Right. And so all these agencies for long, especially DOJ, FBI, people said, oh, they're independent, the president can't be involved in them. That is nonsense. Right. They report to the elected executive. And so as president, I am going to hold those agencies accountable. We're going to get rid of the FBI director on day 1. We're going to clear out the Department of Justice. We're going to have a single standard of justice again in this country. It is not acceptable that somebody like a Hunter Biden can get off with these sweetheart deals and all this turn the blind eye. If he were a Republican, he would have been in jail years ago, and we all know that, and we all understand that. So we can't have that in this country, and so we will clean house and we will end the weaponization of federal power when I become president. So all this is great, and there's much more that we need to do, but none of it matters if you don't win, and none of it matters if you're not able to convert on your promises and actually get it done. And with me as the candidate, you're going to have somebody that will beat Biden. Why? Because you look at what we've done in Florida. I came in governor of Florida. Our elections were decided by 1 point almost every time. People told me, bide your time, keep your head down, don't rock the boat. You may upset the political balance in the state, and maybe you'll lose going forward if you're too bold. Well, I threw that caution to the wind. I rejected the advice, and we led boldly. Proudly, and we got a lot done. Fast forward 4 years later, we didn't win by less than 1%. We didn't win by a mere 32,000 votes. We won by 20 percentage points in over 1.5 million vote margin. That was the largest governor victory in the Republican Party history in Florida. And so we were able to bring together a supermajority of Floridians to rally around our state as the free state of Florida, restoring common sense and sanity and all these different things. And I think there's a huge majority of Americans that want to go a different direction. I don't think they want to go and look back at the past. I think they want to focus on their future. And so if we make the election about holding Biden accountable for his failures and about our positive vision for how we're going to fix the country and reverse American decline, we are going to win the election, and we are going to win it big. And then I will be ready on day one to spit nails, take no prisoners, and get all this stuff done. And I can show you that most people that run for office overpromise and underdeliver. That's kind of the norm. We made very bold promises to the people of Florida when I ran. We delivered on those promises. In fact, we have over-delivered on our promises. Wouldn't it be nice to have somebody that actually over-delivers? And look at what we've done in the state. You know, we've expanded Second Amendment rights. We passed the heartbeat bill. We did universal school choice. We eliminated critical race theory in our K through 12 schools. We eliminated gender ideology and had to fight Disney and beat Disney to be able to make sure our kids' innocence was protected. We kneecapped ESG in the state of Florida. That is no more. We banned the imposition of a central bank digital currency, which they're trying to do. But I'm president, we'll nix that on day one federally. Don't worry about that. We've stood by the men and women in law enforcement and have done bonuses for police officers, and we've authorized the death penalty for pedophiles so that we can hold them accountable. We banned sanctuary cities. We sent support to Texas to help secure the border, and we even helped transport illegal aliens to beautiful Martha's Vineyard. And you know, the elites in this country, they want to impose their policies on the American people. They want to impose open borders on you, but they do not want to have to face the consequences of their own policies. And so I believe taking the border and bringing it to the doorstep of the elites is effective. I think it's been very effective in New York City. And at the end of the day, they cannot be permitted to impose these costs and these policies on the American people and not have to face any consequences themselves. So Florida now is ranked #1 for economy, #1 for education, #1 for new business formations. We have the second lowest tax and debt ratio in America. No income tax, which you all should try sometime. Trust me, it's good. And so we're good. And of course, we had to make a decision in Florida when COVID hit, and as me as governor, you know, are you going to call the shots yourself? Are you going to be willing to lead? Or are you going to subcontract your office to health bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci? And so we made the decision that we were going to buck the trend. We were going to make sure our kids got back in school, our businesses were protected, our individuals can earn a living, and we faced huge blowback. People were attacking the media. I mean, I get attacked a lot now, but I probably got attacked even more back then. It was all about, going after us. And I had a lot of supporters that were like, man, you're getting killed. You may want to reverse course here. But at the end of the day, a leader has got to be more concerned with protecting the jobs of the people he was elected to serve than he is about protecting his own political hive. And so he stood for what was right, and we got the job done. And that's what you can count on me to do. We're going to put your interest over my interest. It's not about me. I'm a vehicle as the leader to be able to do all this stuff, but ultimately it's about doing what's right for the people that put you there. So we have the track record of showing you can have a lot of confidence that we're going to be able to get the job done, and we will do you proud as President of the United States. And we have no choice but to get this done now. And I look at 2024, if the Democrats sweep, they are going to try to pack the U.S. Supreme Court. They are going to try to abolish the Electoral College. They're going to try to make Washington, D.C. a state, and they will try to eliminate voter ID in every jurisdiction in this country. And that will put this country in a deep, deep hole. So we cannot let that happen. So the time for excuses for Republicans is over. We must get the job done. With your support, I will get the job done. Thank you all. Does the First Lady want to come up and say a few words? All right, I want to introduce my wife to talk about. So we talked about a lot of it, but one of the things that's important is the idea of protecting parents' rights and ensuring our education system is not indoctrinating kids. And she has started a mama's movement, first in Florida and now nationwide. And I wanted her to be able to tell you all a little bit about that.
I'm excited to be here, so thank you. So I have to say, first off, it's very relaxing and very nice to talk to somebody older than the age of 5. I was just litigating with a 3-year-old as to why this is not the appropriate time to be playing Barbies. Okay, Mom and Dad are a little busy right now. We'll play Barbies when we get back on the bus. By the way, the bus is parked right out there. Super cool, because I've always told him one of my dreams have been to hijack him and go out in an RV with the kids. It's a little different, running for president. The kids don't quite understand what it means to run for president, but they're having a blast. Because we're on the bus, we get off, we're in a creamery, we're eating cheese curds, we're going to Homestead Dairy, we're getting ice cream. And it's also a little interesting too, when you have a 6'5" and a 3-year-old on a bus with a sugar high in an enclosed space. So, it's just one of those things. I'm like the duck, right, on the water. Everything above the water is fine, we're good, but underneath, you're paddling like heck, that's kind of where we are. But it's also neat with the bus, because when you get off, this has never happened to us until he started running for president, right? You get off the bus, and all of a sudden, there's all these cameras right there, right? Like you're at the Oscar Awards, and there's like 15 different cameras. And so what has been interesting is they'll follow us wherever we go. So we were in Ponca City, Oklahoma. We were at a rodeo, and we're walking around, and we're looking at the booths, and the cameras are following us, and we decide to go over with Governor Stitt. So his daughter, she's an entrepreneur. She had started a snow cone business. And so we went over there, and we figured, what would be a great idea? We'll get snow cones with the kids. So we go over there, and it's loud, and the cameras are there, and everyone's talking, and and by the way, with a 6'5" and a 3-year-old, this was towards the end of the day. So it's like the law of diminishing returns as far as their, happiness is concerned, because they're getting tired, we're trying to eat meals and what have you. So we get to the end of the day, we go to the snow cones, we have the cameras there, and I just misheard my son, because he said that he wanted a snow cone. I thought he wanted nerds on the snow cone. He actually wanted M&Ms, whatever. So we go ahead, we put the nerds on the top of the snow cone, and then I can tell he's this close from having a meltdown. Literally. Now, ordinarily, this would be a teachable moment, right? Grandmoms and moms, this would be where you should be thankful for what you have, but you're not going to do that in front of NBC, ABC, CBS, MSNBC, right? So what I did was what any good mom would do. I jumped under the cameras and I hid, and I took Mason with me, and I proceeded to eat off every single tiny nerd on the top of the snow cone, because of course that's what you're going to do to rectify the situation so we don't have a meltdown on international television. That's just what you do. So anyway, but what's funny about this too is because of course my son loves the color blue, so it was a blue snow cone. So now my nose is blue, my lips are blue, my tongue is blue, I'm smelling blue down my white t-shirt. Anyway, needless to say, we are having an absolute blast. And what an honor it is to be able to come out here and meet so many great people across the state of Iowa and the country. So one of the things the governor and I are very, very passionate about is protecting the innocence of our children and defending the rights of parents. And so we did that. A few weeks ago, we were out with your great governor. Governor Kim Reynolds is a dear friend of both of ours. And we launched Mamas for DeSantis. And Mamas for DeSantis is the largest movement of parents and grandparents in the history of this country with that simple mission. We're going to enlist people to be able to support this guy who can get out there and can protect our kids and can protect the rights of parents. And so we did that in the state of Florida for his re-election. We went out to try to enlist 1 million moms and grandmoms. We ended up getting 1.1 million on board, and a huge contingency from the villages, might I add, of grandmoms. That was a recipe for success because, you know, at the end of the day, it's one thing when your policies come after us. It is another thing when you are coming after our children and you are trying to use our children as a vehicle to further your agenda. We won't stand for it. That's not fair, and we're going to fight back. And this is maybe for the 6, 5, and 3-year-old running around with him, because at the end of the day, I hand him off to him and I go to bed. So it's good meeting y'all. Thank you for the honor. It was a pleasure.
Any mom or grandma wants to sign up, just go Mamas for DeSantis, sign up on the website. We'd love to have your support, and we'd love to have your support in January for the Iowa caucus. We will do you proud. You won't have to worry about me. We will be working hard. We will follow through on all of our promises, and we will uphold the importance of the presidency, and it'll be something that I think people will be proud of our country again. And we can make that happen. So thank you all. We appreciate it. I'm happy to take any questions anybody has. Yes, sir. Oh, gosh. Yeah. So the question, Biden just did this thing where he declared a national monument, you know, where you had a lot of rare earth minerals that China is kicking our rear end with this. You know, they want to do electric cars and all this stuff. Well, you get a lot of this stuff from China. So we need to be doing more of that here. And Biden did that so that we're not able to do more of that here. I don't know the intricacies of it, but I would reverse it. Absolutely. I mean, I think we need to be able to develop our own resources here. And for heaven's sakes, do not put your country in a position where you're dependent on China, our chief adversary, for things that are important to our national survival. And incidentally, when Biden wants to force you to buy an electric vehicle, and he hits our own energy industry, that takes one of our best advantages and it eliminates it, and then it gives China all this advantage because we've got to rely on them for so much. It makes no sense. It is ideology run amok, and it's not doing what's in the best interest of this country. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to know your opinion on China buying up land, our farmland, and then now it's coming to light the land around bases that we have.
It's a great question. I can tell you this, not in the state of Florida that's happening, because we passed legislation that I signed banning the purchase of all land by the CCP and its affiliates. Yes, we want to do it nationwide, of course. You know, especially you look at things like farmland, why would we want them to have a foothold in our food supply? I mean, this is part of our national security. Why would we want them to have a foothold near military installations? This is our national security. Why would we want them to have a foothold near other types of critical infrastructure? So we said, incidentally, you know, we did that in Florida. I called for it, we signed it. The ACLU is suing us to try to let the CCP buy land in Florida. And you can't make this up that that's happening. Here's the thing though, China is the top threat to this country by far. And the reason is because one, their economy is much stronger than our previous adversaries. You know, during the Cold War, the Soviet Union, their economy was a joke. And Reagan understood this. When he did the defense buildup, he basically bankrupted them because he knew they couldn't keep up. And so they did that. So we had a huge economic advantage there. China, although their economy isn't as big as ours now, they're on a trajectory to pass us if we don't change course with a lot of this policy. And if that happens, they will have passed us because American policy has intentionally made them wealthier. We've had American corporations that have intentionally made China wealthier. We've had business leaders who turn a blind eye to a lot of really bad practices in China. And then our economies have become interconnected. That's why we need to do this decoupling so that we're not dependent on them. But right now, we are dependent on them for pharmaceuticals, for things involving military, really, really significant stuff. And that's not healthy. So that makes right there it more challenging in some respects than what the Russians did in the past. They also have the second strongest military in the world. Now, their military is not as strong as ours. We're going to do more when we fix the culture of the military. We're going to expand our naval footprint. We're going to do a lot to project power in the Pacific to deter them from doing things like trying to invade Taiwan or invading other neighbors, because they have a lot of ambition. The only thing China respects is power, hard power in their neighborhood. If you don't have that, then they're going to take advantage of it. We also have to recognize they exert a lot of power over our society and culture. We've done things in Florida like prohibit these Confucius institutes from being in college campuses. They will set up a Confucius Institute. They pay for it, but it's basically CCP propaganda. Why would we want that done? They put a lot of money into American universities. Honestly, they put a lot of money into the media too, and fund that. So we've got to get real about all this. And so I think it's a more complex problem in some respects than what we faced during the Cold War with the Soviet Union. Right now, Biden is totally out to lunch on this. Honestly, most of these DC elites are totally out to lunch on this. Biden, of course, his family has made a fortune, with China, so there's reasons why he's there. But the elites in DC, they're not taking it seriously. We will take it seriously. I mean, you will see a new approach, and you will see an approach that I think is consistent with protecting this country's interests. Yes, sir.
Governor, this will be your last question.
Yes, sir.
You being an ex-military man, and knowing all of us in this room know that Mexican drug lords are at war with the United States and with our youth. Would you be willing to use drones, whatever military it takes, to take out those drug cartels in Mexico?
Yes, I've already said that. We will lean in against the drug cartels. We will absolutely reserve the right. If they're invading our country and killing our people, we have the right to defend this country. We have the right to hold them accountable. And it's not just if they happen to come over our border. And if Mexico's not going to help us with that, well, then we're going to have to do what we have to do. But the alternative is just let tens of thousands of your fellow citizens die. Let these people, these poor young people, be trafficked into this country by the cartels. And even like what they're doing with the mass migration. There's a lot of criminal aliens coming in, but put that aside. The sheer number of people is overwhelming communities in this country. So they're causing all these different problems, and we're just supposed to turn the other cheek. Not on my watch. We are going to lean in, and we are going to defend this country. And look, I think I will be the first president elected in this country who served overseas in a war since 1988. We haven't had one serve on active duty or serve forward since then. And I think, look, at the end of the day, there's different people have different experiences. But I think with me, one thing you can know is, okay, well, why is he? Sorry, that's my phone. I don't know why anyone's calling me. They know I'm here. But I think part of the question, when you look at people like, why are they running? Okay? And let's just be honest, there's some people that are not running really to be president, right? They're running for, who knows why they're running, but they're running. The only reason I'm running is I'm running to win, I'm running to serve, and I'm running to get the job done for you. But I think you could say, why would you want to do that? And the fact that I've dedicated my life to service to this country in a variety of capacities should show you that what motivates me is a higher purpose. It's not about me. It's not about the fanfare. We've got, governor, it's great job, but I don't care about the fanfare of being governor. I care about delivering results for people, and that's what motivates me. And it's the same thing here. I've always felt a sense of gratitude to this country. I've always felt lucky to have been born an American. And I've always felt a responsibility to ensure that all the people through all these generations that have sacrificed, fought, and even some who gave the last full measure of devotion for us, that those are sacrifices that we appreciate and that we don't squander the great heritage of liberty that we've been given. And that'll be my mindset going in. I'm going in to serve you. I'm not going to be somebody. I'm going to do something. I'm going to reverse the decline of this country. So thank you all. God bless you. Appreciate it. That's 31 counties now, 31 or 32 that we've been able to knock out. We appreciated a lot of the folks coming out, and we're just going to continue working it, continue bringing the message to everybody. And the response I get is pretty similar. It's like people come up to me after and just be like, oh, yeah, you know, you're really good. I'm going to support you. I really appreciated the message. So I think we come into Iowa, people know I'm governor. You know, they know we've done good things, but ultimately you deliver the message, and people have been responding. And so we're going to go to every community, and we're going to get the job done.
Governor, you criticized Donald Trump's personnel decisions like Dr. Fauci, but you've had to lay off a third of your campaign staff. You switched campaign managers. You had an aide who reportedly had made a video that had the Nazi symbol.
About this.
How can
Americans,
Americans...
as an executive, is, you know, I make decisions and hold people accountable. Just yesterday, we held the prosecutor accountable in Central Florida. You know, 2 cops got shot in the face because somebody was out who should not have been out, and it was her dereliction and actually intentional weak policies that caused that. And we see a lot of carnage that's happened. So we step up, you know, and we pull the trigger and we hold people accountable. And that's ultimately what you have to do. You got to be willing to hold people accountable. You know, I look at things like, you know, the FBI. We will have, as president on day one, a new FBI director. You know, Donald Trump could have changed that in his time after he did Ray. And it didn't work out, and he should have made that decision, but he didn't. Clearly, Dr. Fauci should have been fired. He caused a lot of damage, and not only was he not fired, Donald Trump gave Fauci a presidential commendation on January 19th, 2021, his last day in office. And I think that was a gut punch, I think, to a lot of people who had suffered under those bad COVID policies. What's that?
Did you say you would use drones on the Mexican drug cartels?
I said I would use whatever force we need to defend the country. You know, they're killing tens of thousands of Americans right now. They're trafficking people into this country. They're abusing people, sexual abuse. It's really the worst of humanity. I would categorize them as something akin to a foreign terrorist organization. I think that's what they've proven to be. The Mexican government is not doing what they need to do to help with this. But we said from day one on our border announcement, we'd be willing to lean in against them, and we reserve the right to defend the country.
Thomas's limited disclosure of luxury trips and gifts bankrolled by his billionaire friends. You praised Clarence Thomas. Do you have any thoughts on the recent report?
Is this the Harlan Crow stuff?
The new one with ProPublica this morning.
Well, I haven't seen that. Look, I think, you know, clearly there's a concerted effort to try to demonize Justices Thomas and Alito in particular. You know, some of these liberal, like Ginsburg, she used to do different things. So if we want to come together and say, okay, maybe there should be these rules and everyone get on the same page, that's fine. But this is being used, I think, to attack Clarence. I think it's being used to attack Justice Alito. And those are 2 justices that have served with honor and with integrity. They've demonstrated fidelity to the United States Constitution. They've demonstrated fidelity to the law. And I think it's obvious why this is happening, because the court has now shifted.
It had previously been a court that was, a little bit in the middle, slightly left. And then now with the changes in the last few years, you now have a court that is at least nominally 6-3 on most issues. Clarence and Sam are driving, a lot of the change in that direction. So they're coming under attack, and I think that it's manufactured. And at the end of the day, I think that they've all done a great job.
Governor, should you guys approve more funding for the Ukraine war?
Heavily fan the economy and workforce issues. Do you feel that that's resonating more with Iowans than woke issues?
Oh, they're both very big. I mean, I think this whole, so yes, I mean, economy is important. We've always said that. We've always talked about it. And we've articulated now. We did our Declaration of Economic Independence a couple weeks ago in New Hampshire. We've gotten great response to that. But when I get questions, I get a lot of questions about the culture. I get a lot of questions about leftist ideology because they see it infiltrating different institutions. And honestly, there's a connection because things like ESG, that is taking ideological agenda and using the economy to try to advance it. That's bad because those policies are things that most Iowans don't support and that I don't support. But it's also the case our economy will do worse if it becomes a tool of political activism. We need to focus the economy on the core mission. Don't leverage that. These asset managers that are trying to leverage that to advance an agenda. In Florida, we kneecapped ESG. We took $2 billion from our pension fund out of management by BlackRock because they obviously had a very strong agenda on that. So I think that there is connections to a lot of this stuff. And honestly, with the China stuff, our country is so dependent on China. We've let that happen now. I think at this point, anyone that doesn't recognize that, that's just ideological. You've got to recognize that we need to go a different direction with respect to China. Some of the education stuff, I think, has been ideological. Why would we not want programs that are going to lead to really positive workforce opportunities for students? You ain't getting that with zombie studies, and yet so many students have gone deep into debt with very poor career prospects. And so we want to reorient that. We want to focus on workforce education. Yes, 4-year degrees in engineering and in classic stuff, yes. But ideological studies, no. So I do think that there's a connection to all this. I don't think it's like you only do the economy, you don't worry about culture, you don't worry. No, you worry about it all because ultimately it all makes a difference in people's lives. And you saw the First Lady up there talking about parents' rights and education. That hits home to parents with young children right now because they see what's going on in a lot of the schools and they just want to make sure they can send their kid to school and the kids can just be kids without having an agenda imposed on them. And that's what we're committed to do, and we will get that done. Thank you, guys.
Well, did Governor Ron DeSantis convince you to vote for him? Hey, this episode of Southeast Iowa Today has been brought to you by Car Doctor, Griner Auto Body, Wayland State Bank, McDonald Boneyard, Hinshaw Trailer Sales, Girling Repair, B&B Propane, and the family of Jet Stops. I'm your host, John Bain. Stay friendly, Southeast Iowa.